Welcome to episode 63 of the Cashflow Connections podcast. We have a special episode today because we are joined by several of the owners of For Investors by Investors, or FIBI. They're here today to join us for a roundtable discussion about networking, the power of networking, and For Investors by Investors in general. As some of you may know, FIBI is the group that is co-hosting the Intelligent Investors Real Estate Conference with us. I am good friends with these guys. I have partnered with them on a variety of different investments across multiple different asset classes. In fact, the people on this podcast have all played a pretty significant role in my perspective as an investor and as a business owner. I think we have all really influenced each other in many ways, which is really a reoccurring theme during the whole conversation. This, of course, is a big driving factor for why we decided to partner with them on the upcoming conference. Like I mentioned before, there's a lot of great content available on the internet. You can listen to podcasts on your way to and from work and really learn a ton by just listening to experts discuss their opinion. But when things go sideways, when you really need money really quickly, or you really need a deal to reinvest your own capital in, the way those problems get solved is by having a network that you can actually rely on. And it needs to already be in place by the time that stuff happens. So this is really why we were motivated to produce this conference, because that's kind of the missing link with the CFC podcast. But having a reliable network is a very important factor for any experienced investor. So as I'm sure many of you have already heard, we are producing the Intelligent Investors Real Estate Conference November 10th through the 11th in Marina del Rey, California. It is unquestionably going to be one of the best educational and networking weekends available out there. Trust me, I'm always looking for opportunities like this. There just isn't a lot available that has this caliber of speakers that cover this type of content. So make sure to go to intelligentinvestors2018.com. You can actually check out the full agenda now. We recently launched that. You can see the entire schedule. You're going to see that it's absolutely jam-packed. Every single minute is accounted for. So head over there as soon as possible and grab your tickets. They actually are going up in price again on October 20th. So if you haven't yet done that, make sure to do so before that date, because they're going to go up in price again. And of course, use the discount code CFC for $100 off the ticket price. And I look forward to seeing you there. All right, hope you enjoy the episode. How's it going, everyone? Today, we have a very special Cashflow Connections podcast episode with the owners of For Investors by Investors, or FIBI. If you're not already familiar with FIBI, they are a nonprofit real estate education organization with 19 chapters across 3 states. They host monthly meetings where the entire focus is on education rather than pitching or sales or anything like that. And since 2007, FIBI has built a community that consists of more than 27,000 investors. So today I am joined by Jeremy Roll, Mathew Owens, and David Coe, all of which are significantly influential investors in the real estate community. Guys, it's really an honor to have you on. Thanks again.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the invite.
Looking forward to it.
So we obviously have a bunch of people on the line today, and obviously, we want to kind of go in a little order there, but I do want to give the listeners an understanding of a little bit about your background. All of you have been members or guests on the podcast before, but I think in the context of this conversation, just starting with, a little bit about your background, how you got started in real estate, and then we'll jump into the FIBI stuff in just a moment. So let's start with you, Dave, and then we'll go to Matt and then Jeremy.
Very good. Well, thanks for having us again. Always a pleasure to be on your podcast. I started in real estate about 12 years ago, was fixing and flipping, with my wife. We were both corporate employee kind of people, and we're craving some freedom and really loved real estate. So we started doing that towards the end of the last cycle. And then after the market shifted and, we didn't feel comfortable buying, fixing and flipping houses anymore, we started getting involved more in helping people invest in real estate using IRAs and 401ks, and started building a residential real estate business's brokerage side. One of the things that's been a big impact on my career is getting involved with FIBI. So I'm kind of excited to be a part of this today and talk about how FIBI impacted me. These days, I've gotten much more involved in development. We're still doing some smaller fixing and flipping, but I'm a partner in a project out in North Hollywood to build some single family houses. And also still have my hands tied in a couple of different helping to manage to generate passive cash flow. So excited to be here and excited to hear our conversation today.
Thanks again. Matt, a little bit about your background and how you got started in real estate.
I got started in real estate because somebody told me to go to a real estate class and spend $16,000 on a boot camp. And that's how I got started. And now that's kind of like what we're all against at FIBI, right? So is to try to actually go through and find a place to network and develop the right relationships you have and learn, without that sales pitch involved. But I was working at a CPA firm at the time and doing tax and audit, and got introduced to real estate through that educational platform, and actually got my first flip under contract and then quit my CPA firm job. Since then, we've flipped a little bit over 700 houses. We do a lot of lending. We do a lot of multifamily and different aspects. But the reason I got involved with FIBI is because I was sitting at a table at one of Jeremy's meetups, and he was going through probably a stack of 100 pages of different information that he reads consistently. And it was absolutely interesting because the value that everybody else got in the room was so strong that I was like, I got to duplicate this. This is amazing. And I started my own chapter after that. And then Dave and I started a chapter, after that as well. So the whole purpose and the whole reason Dave and I got really started in this is because we saw how much value that this type of group could give to other investors, and also the value that we were getting from it, from just networking with other investors that are like-minded and all trying to help each other and find ways of making money together. And so everybody has different resources. And so I saw all that, and Dave saw it too. And we were like, wow, Jeremy set up something pretty nice here. I think this is going to be something that can grow really great and to help a ton of people at the same time. So that's kind of how we got started and how I got started in FIBI and in real estate as a whole.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And then going back to Jeremy, I'll let you kind of tell your story regarding your background, but as well as founding FIBS. So let's hear that, Jeremy.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks again for having us. Really appreciate it, Hunter. So I got started back in real estate back in 2001. For me, I was in the corporate world, like a lot of people probably listening, and I was actually working for, who was I working for at the time? Disney headquarters. And I essentially, after the dot-com crash, was just sick and tired of both the volatility of the stock market, but what bothered me even more was the lack of predictability, like not knowing where my retirement account was going to be in 10, 20, 30 years because of the amount of volatility in the stock market right after the dot-com crash. So I started to look at different ways to invest, and I was looking for more predictable cash flow, and started going to a lot of local meetings in Los Angeles, and real estate meetings, educational meetings, networking meetings. And I kind of dipped my toe in the water back in 2002 with my first passive opportunity, and I've been investing passively essentially the whole time since 2002. Eventually, the cash flow, I rotated out my money out of stocks and bonds into cash flow between 2002 and 2007, and eventually cash flow got me out of the corporate world. And that leads me to the founding of FIBI. So essentially, between 2002 and 2007, I would go to a lot of networking meetings in LA. And there's a lot of them because it's a really big city, which was really, really great. The challenge is that a lot of them have a lot of sales pitches where they're trying to sell books and tapes and seminars. And in some of those, there's actually some great education while they're doing it, and others maybe not so much. And so what I would do is, to avoid kind of wasting 2 hours of time through a sales pitch I didn't want to hear, I would actually bring work to that meeting while I was in the corporate world, like, the nighttime meetings, and I would sit in the back row and do work. And then, 2 hours later when it was done, I would actually go and network with all these investors. And my purpose was really meet other investors, exchange information to learn, but also to find opportunities. And the types of opportunities I was investing in were all privately marketed, not publicly marketed. And so it was very, very hard to find. Long story short is that once I left the corporate world, I remember I was sitting in my first meeting post-corporate world, and it was a sales pitch. And I'm sitting in the meeting, and I realized to myself, I have a problem because now I have no work to do, and I have to listen to the sales pitch for 2 hours. So essentially what happened is I said, why am I wasting my time here for 2 hours when I can actually start my own meetings where the core foundation is that there's no sales pitch? And then we're just trying to unite investors. And that's why it's called For Investors by Investors. We're just trying to unite investors together, learn from each other, exchange information, find opportunities. And the goal is truly to break even. It's not to make any profit whatsoever, which is why FIBI is a nonprofit organization. And so ended up partnering with Ellis San Jose, who unfortunately couldn't join us on the call today. He had a similar mindset. I'd actually had been visiting his meetings, just like Matt had visiting my meeting. We had a very similar mindset, very small meeting. And we started For Investors by Investors back in the fall of 2007. I remember my first meeting at Starbucks in Westwood, California, had 4 people, including myself. Very, very small. But now we have over 27,000 registered users and many chapters, and it's really grown. And I think that one of the reasons why we were able to grow without really having a marketing budget or whatnot, aside from the help of meetup.com, which has really, really helped us, is not just because we had chapter leaders and frankly, even partners like Matt and Dave who really helped to take us to the next level. And we could talk about that. But it was also because people saw that we were for real and that we really weren't selling anything, which is surprising to people. And that we actually, that's really, we're like our core philosophy is no sales. We're really hardcore about it. And people really like that. And so they knew if they came to us, it'd be kind of a safe place, so to speak, where there would be no sales pitch. And so that's how FIBI ended up growing very slowly and evolving over time. And the formats of the meetings we have changed depending on how big we were and everything else. So that's the quick background. So we started back in 2007.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's actually interesting because it's been a while since I've heard that story. And I actually wanted to tell my introduction to FIBI because it's also somewhat interesting. So, I actually, very similarly to the other people on the call, was going to networking events. That was basically the business model. Back then, the access to education just wasn't the same that it is now via things like webinars and podcasts, et cetera. And so you just had to go as many times as you could go to as many different meetups as you could. And a lot of them are just wasted time. And I ended up going to one that was one of those wasted time meetups. And I met someone who I did think was very interesting. It was a ATM operator who would place ATMs, and then investors could purchase a portion of the ATMs, very similar to a syndicated investment, and get a percentage of the ATM or buy the entire ATM. What ended up happening was I was talking to him, and he said, if you like these types of investments, you should go talk to my friend Jeremy Roll because he specializes in alternative investments that are passive and recession resistant. And I actually sent a request to attend the next Jeremy Roll meeting, and 1 week later, I was at this meeting, and Jeremy suggested I introduce myself to Matt because Matt worked in Memphis, which is where I'm from. And from Matt, I got introduced to David Coe, and now, all of us have just grown so significantly over the years and done a lot of business together. And it's all pretty remarkable. All of it is because as soon as I went to my first FIBI meeting, I never went to any of those other networking events because it's categorically different. You don't have to waste your time listening to a sales pitch in order to get the bulk, which is either the education or the networking component. So again, I really appreciate you guys sharing that. I know that FIBI has a variety of different structures. There's some panels, there's some that are just basically presentations. I was wondering if you guys could go through and explain what your particular chapter is and the focus and the structure of that particular chapter.
I'll go first with that one. And yeah, so I co-run the South Bay group with Matt. And what we've done is we created a panel format. So every month, we'll do a panel. We'll pick a topic. It's a range of real estate related topics. This month coming up, we're actually doing our State of the Economy panel. We've got Jeremy Roll, we've got Norris, and we've got Christina Suter, who are going to be on that panel. And the format is one where we call it FIBI Plugged. We have never, ever, ever had a PowerPoint presentation at any of our FIBI meetings. And I think when people are just talking and answering questions, there's a believability about it. There's a genuineness about it. It feels more organic. It feels more natural. And every month we'll invite 3 panelists to come. We're doing State of the Economy. This year we've talked about, profiting from short-term rentals, fixing, flipping, apartments, commercial. We'll just kind of rotate topics every single month, but we'll try to find panelists that aren't necessarily people that are on the circuit, so to speak. It's more people that are in the business that are actually doing investing on a day-to-day basis. And Hunter, one more thing I want to add, and because my first group was going to Jeremy's group, and I just as described that stack of paper. The first time I got that stack of paper and I started reading it, I realized that I was about to get a master's degree in real estate for $20. Right? Like just coming to the meeting, it wasn't just the information we got, the discussion that centered around that, and everyone that was discussing it wasn't discussing it to try to sell you or convince you of a point of view, but it was more about their perception of it, how they thought it impacted them, where they thought the opportunity was, where they thought the risk were. And the community of FIBI is to me what has become so powerful is the people that participate. And I would say every single month when we have a panel, maybe 50% of the audience are people that are, or more that have been to FIBI meetings before. And people come to share. People come to learn, to listen, but they also come to share and to give. And I think that's really what has made FIBI stand out from some other kind of real estate investment clubs, is the quality of investor that we attract because we don't sell them anything, I think is way higher than any other group I've ever encountered.
I agree completely. In fact, I was actually on a call with someone recently who was asking me a little bit about my background. And obviously, my introduction to real estate was based on networking events and then just doing deals, right? And so some people come from an institutional background, or they get a master's degree in real estate, like you said. And it's interesting because they were saying, oh, so you're basically self-taught. I'm like, nothing could be further from the truth, right? Like what really happened was I was very lucky to have the network that I did so that the educational component came along with that as I was moving forward in there. So that's awesome. And thanks for going through that. Matt, what about the group? And you have your group with Dave, and then I think you have another group as well, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And I do think you do get self-taught quite a bit with taking hits and punches and all that kind of stuff as you go through real estate. But the support system that you have there through them to get out of problems and bring in resources is absolutely amazing. So, and that's kind of, my group in Long Beach. Actually, I just moved it over to Cerritos. We're at the Cerritos Library right now, and it's a beautiful venue. And what we typically do is like a roundtable type discussion about different specific topics. We'll bring in speakers sometimes, but it's more of a Q&A type topic where we just really discuss a specific topic. Like we've done it on short-term rentals. We've done it on raising capital and flipping properties. I just did a whole class on multifamily due diligence and how to go through an entire multifamily, and did a whole Q&A with the audience there for that. And, we just try to add as much value as we can, because we know that if we add value, we get resources and investors help us, and we find different ways that we can help investors and make money together. And so we'll typically go through and do that roundtable type discussion, very similar to what Jeremy was doing with his group, but on a larger scale. There's value in the smaller scale and value in the bigger scale as well. But looking at it from the perspective of, can we answer specific questions and help them with their individual challenges that they're having? And, a lot of them really just want to learn, and they're getting involved in this. And we're trying to set that mindset for them so that they understand what they're doing and how to protect themselves in different ways when they're investing. And so I think that aspect of it, the roundtable discussion and really getting involved with the individuals, really adds a lot of value from our group.
Yeah, agreed completely. Jeremy, what about your group and the structure there and the content as well?
Sure. So I have not managed a group, I think, since 2011 or 12. We had a pretty bad family emergency with my younger son back then that took about a year to resolve. And since that time, I just paused my groups at that point, and I didn't pick them up again, unfortunately. But when I had my groups, they were pretty small, especially by today's standards. They were started at Starbucks and then kind of graduated to a legal office conference room where I had rented an office just for the purpose of having the meetings every month. And I used to host 2 meetings a month. I had 3 meetings that rotated, and they were all the same format. I think we had a maximum of, I can only hold about 30 to 40 people in that room, because we were at a kind of conference table, and then we had another set of chairs surrounding the conference table on the perimeter. And similar to what Matt's doing now with the round table. And I think Matt and Dave have both alluded to these stack of papers. That used to be a macroeconomic discussion that I used to host, where I used to literally photocopy about 100 pages or more a month and bring stacks of 100 pages to everybody and walk everybody through different sections of just talking about what's going on in the market. And the goal of that meeting was actually to get out of the weeds in media and see what's really going on, so we can all actually figure out what to do as investors, as opposed to what's going on in the main headlines in the media, looking at the real data. So I haven't managed a meeting in a number of years, although I'm very active still in helping in terms of budgeting, and go to the semi-annual networking events and some of our other meetings as well. But frankly, to be honest, Dave and Matt have really, when they joined as partners, they really took things to the next level and helped to continue to push things forward. So very, very appreciative of that. So that's my quick background on the chapters.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I have definitely, seen the evolution of FIBI going from relatively small groups to really significant, 50, 60 attendees on a regular reoccurring basis, if not more, in several of the meetings. And it really is some of the most influential people that I know in terms of real estate in the state of California. Now, they're like, that's in the private sector. There's obviously institutional players, which are completely unrelated to that conversation. But in terms of in-person, meaningful people that run their own businesses, there's definitely some major players in the space. And I know that there's actually, one of the benefits of FIBI, again, is the fact that there's a good mix of people that are relatively new and people that are extremely experienced. And I've personally benefited from that significantly. And I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to share an example of a deal that you did where someone in the FIBI community or the FIBI community in general was able to help you significantly. And we'll just kind of go again in that same order, just starting with Dave.
Oh, that's interesting. There's been quite a few. I mean, I'll say at the highest level, Hunter, clearly you and I, we've run a couple of funds together and we've met through FIBI. And I think that's been, one way I've been connected. One of the other, I think, probably obvious benefits I've gotten from FIBI is we were doing a panel about 4 or 5 years ago. And at the time, we had a project tied up in Hollywood that we were going to fix and flip. And that morning, the lender who was, had finished their underwriting and came back and had revised their loan amount rather dramatically to what we thought we had. So I just made a comment, hey, if anyone knows of someone who's looking to do construction kind of loans on a fix and flip, higher end stuff, let me know. At the end of the meeting, someone in the audience came up and said, hey, we're just getting into that. The next day, they came out and took a look at the property. And I think within like 4 or 5 days, we had an LOI from them and they ended up funding the loan, as well as the main investor group that was involved in that I got connected to through FIBI. So that was a project where, not only did the deal come together based on the connections that I had made through FIBI, but literally at the 11th hour, when things looked like they were getting ready to go sideways, someone from the FIBI community stepped up and said, yeah, we would take a look at that. And it ended up being, a really successful deal.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that one of the key takeaways right there is that you can actually put yourself in a pretty negative situation if you don't have a network. Because if you didn't have that network, if you didn't know who to reach out to, it doesn't matter how good the deal is or was or is going to be or how much you've been paying over the debt service coverage ratio. If you don't have that network, you can be in a challenging spot if things start to go sideways. So completely agree there. What about you, Matt?
I think probably, I want to say 90% plus of my supplemental resources from, attorneys to accountants to hard money lenders to different private investors have come from the FIBI network in one way, shape, or form, either initially from an investor in FIBI that got referred to us somewhere else, on another deal, or referred other people to us to become other referral sources and things like that. I mean, a substantial amount of my resources and the different people that supplement the real estate business, from insurance to all those other aspects that I mentioned, are from the community that I developed through FIBI and through my chapters and Dave and I's chapters and Jeremy's groups and things like that. And the other ones that we have, in Orange County and Pasadena and things like that. And there's been so many deals. I've helped a lot of investors buy single family home investment properties, invest in multifamilies and things like that. So there's tons of those types of deals that have actually occurred through different people associated with FIBI or that I've met through FIBI. So it's been like the best resource development thing. And the thing you said that I think was most important, Hunter, was that the power that comes with that network is huge. When you are dealing with problems in real estate, and there's always problems in real estate, there's very rarely a deal that goes perfect and smooth, then that resource development becomes key to your success moving forward. There's different people that teach you new ways of maneuvering to adjust the deal, or a new strategy you haven't thought of that someone else already knows how to do that you can rely on or call on, or someone else that just has a referral to somebody that you need. So there's a ton of different, that aspect of it, Hunter, I think you hit it on the head, is so powerful. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, agreed. Especially when it comes to downside protection.
Right.
You have to build up your network, and you have to be doing it all stages of the cycle, because when you need it, it needs to be there already. It needs to be someone that you've already had lunch with, someone that you can already rely on, or a friend of a friend, but that friend needs to be made now. So definitely agree. Jeremy, what about you? A deal or a series of deals that you were involved in that were made better by the FIBA community in general?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you the number of opportunities I've invested in as a result of referrals from the FIBI community. Honestly, probably even from the three of you, probably more than once, I'm sure, from each of you over time, just you guys alone. The striking ones that come to mind, a couple. One is my first meeting that I ever held was at Starbucks in Westwood, and there were three other people who showed except for me. And one person was unfortunately selling books and tapes and seminars, and that wasn't a good fit. But two of the other people, actually, I ended up investing with, which is shocking to me because if anybody knows me well, I'm like really, really picky. And one of them is actually the ATM operator that I think Hunter had brought up on this call, which to date is actually from a return perspective, aside from a couple startups I invested in, it's probably my most successful passive cash flow investment to date, just from a return perspective. I invested with him since 2008. And the other is, and actually at that meeting, I also ended up investing multiple times with someone who's flipping homes locally and very successful investments, really nice guy. The other is, I ended up investing in a series of mobile home park funds, thanks to an introduction from Matt to someone named Eric Saragusa, who is probably also one of my most interesting investments, and it's gone fairly well, and it's just been going on for years. I love that asset class. And I think probably all three of you got involved I think three of you may have invested in those opportunities as well. But, that actually opened other doors in the mobile home park space from it. And it's kind of the networking, ends up creating more networking and everything else. So I can tell you right now that aside from the individual deal, identification, networking pre-FIBI completely changed my life. It found me opportunities to get me out of the corporate world through cash flow. I found every single one because they weren't allowed to be publicly marketed. And the networking has really led to just changing my life completely in really positive ways. And I cannot stress that even though it's a lot of work, like Hunter mentioned, I probably went to 2 to 3 meetings, or maybe average 2 meetings a week for years in Los Angeles to be able to network and really build up network prior to even launching FIBI. But the networking has just changed my life, and it just, like everyone else has said, it's just immensely powerful. And actually, I want to touch upon one more thing that's really interesting. I think Matt was the one who said this. I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but the idea that you don't have the network, you won't necessarily have ways to mitigate challenges. And one thing I tell people when I get an opportunity, it's like a foreign opportunity, maybe like a deal in Costa Rica or wherever it is, doesn't matter where it is. I tell them, look, I don't invest in a country where I actually don't have a network. So I invest in Canada because I'm originally from Montreal, and I invest in the US, and that's it. And the reason is exactly for what we're talking about, because if something goes wrong, I can call my friends up in Canada and eventually leverage my network to find people to help me solve a challenge. Obviously, I have that in the US now, but that's the main reason why I won't invest in a foreign market. And that's really the power of the network, just like everybody else here has been saying. So networking can just completely change your life. And I don't care if it's a FIBI meeting or however else you're doing it, but I couldn't recommend it more.
Yeah. And I'll just throw in a story as well. These people, they saw me go from being relatively unsophisticated in 2010, interested in financial matters, and I'm naturally drawn to those, so understand the vocabulary. But when it comes to real estate in particular, that was the beginning of my real estate career around that time. And so, I remember, for example, David Coe was specializing in self-directed retirement funds, like he mentioned, where he was so busy that he didn't have time to schedule calls with me. But I would say, just call me in between your meetings, because I have a couple questions to ask you about self-directed retirement. And over the years, that relationship grew. Like he mentioned, we operate a couple funds together. Mathew Owens and I have also partnered on funds, and cumulatively, Jeremy and I have also been involved in many, many, many transactions, all over, millions of dollars across the three of us. And so, that's pretty remarkable. And it's 80% of my business for sure. And, the podcast being a significant role in the investor base when it comes to the actual service providers and the partners. FIBI has been a huge, huge piece of that. Now, obviously, we've talked a lot about networking. We've talked a lot about FIBI, but since I do have you guys here, I do want to get your perspective on the real estate market and, where you see the opportunity. So my real question for each of you is what you're currently focusing on. Specifically, what's the type of deal that if you saw it come through your email, you would jump out of bed and say, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to be focusing on right now, and I'm trying to get this thing closed as soon as possible. And I'll just start with you again, Dave.
So the thing that we we're clearly, I believe, we're at the end of the cycle, and looking for opportunities become a lot more challenging. So one of the things that, I've been looking at is, where are there systemic problems in real estate that, there might be opportunity in helping to solve them. And for me right now, there's such a huge amount of housing shortage in Southern California. Lower income, first time home buyer kind of inventory has just been squeezed even throughout this entire recovery. So what I've been focused on for the last, couple of years is anything where we're looking to create, first time home buyer kind of inventory. And I think even through a recession, there's been so much pent up demand that there's still going to be opportunity in providing housing here in Southern California. So, I've been hyper focused on looking for opportunities where, we can create that either through, renovating something or building something from raw land.
Very cool. What about you, Matt?
Man, I'm tired of flipping. I want to start holding stuff. In this timing of the market, it really comes down to, can you get stable cash flows that can withstand, any economic volatility? And so, what I would really focus on if I had my dream deal right now is a really big value add multifamily that can withstand, downside potential in the market and just cash flow really well based on the metrics of the whole deal. And, the bigger you go, the better financing you can get. You really want to try to get longer term financing if you can on an asset like that, just because of the, the metrics associated with the market, the rates may be rising and things like that in the future. So something that cash flows really well because of the value add you're looking at doing to it that you can hold long term. I'm really looking for cash flow at this point. The market, the flip business is great. It's very automated right now at this point, but at the same time, looking at that cash flow stream, I think is the most important aspect. So for a lot of the newer investors, they can build their capital through flipping, but at the same time, it's volatile. It changes when the market changes. And right now, as soon as the market crashes, it's going to be a good time to go back into flipping. But it's squeezing every dollar out right now to get things, to get the flips going. The people are having to put more money into marketing and that kind of thing to get more flips done. If we're talking about the overall market, I think we're probably at the tail end of it right now. If we're not already crashing and don't know it, So, but at the same time, things look good on the open market. So, things look good, but I think things are starting to slow. Affordability is starting to take its toll a little bit, and rents have been rising so fast that I don't think the wages are keeping up with it. So we'll see where that happy medium is.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And what about you, Jeremy? What's the deal that makes you jump out of bed, or what's your main focus right now in terms of your ideal opportunity?
Sure. So my main focus has pretty much been since the start on mostly commercial real estate, diversified tenant-based type of opportunities outside of California, kind of higher cash flow focus, lower risk focus. So I don't do development. I've never invested in a development deal, for example. And so because where we are in the cycle, which I believe is towards the end, I'm trying to be particularly careful about investing in something at market rates. I believe that the market rates are all a little bit overpriced no matter which asset class. And I invest across most of the major commercial real estate asset classes. So what would really get me excited is if I got a deal that was, say, 10% discount to market rate or better, like true market value, 10% discount, stabilized, really good operator, because I always invest passively with an operator, and in an asset class where I think it will do well during a downturn because it's got to prepare for that, as well as with an operator who's really had a strong track record that I've preferably invested with multiple times before. And so I call those like the hidden gems, or kind of the diamonds in the rough. They're just the kind of deal that makes I don't believe in investing in an asset A, B, and C right now because the market rate's crazy, but I have to do this deal. Like, it's just a no-brainer. And so I kind of wake up every morning hoping for it, realizing it's very unrealistic, and once in a while it comes across. So otherwise, I'm personally just kind of involved in a whole number of sales, kind of waiting around for a bit of a market adjustment or a downturn so that I can kind of jump back in into more cash flowing opportunities when the pricing is a little bit different. So that's kind of my answer in a nutshell.
Yeah, makes sense. And thanks for sharing that. So one of the things that I know that one of the reasons I wanted to get you guys together and talk about this, I know that we're all really excited about this upcoming conference that we've all been working really hard on. And for those of you who don't know that are listening, we are having a Intelligent Investors Real Estate Conference November 10th and 11th at Marina del Rey. It is going to be awesome. We have some all-star speakers there. All the people that are currently on this call are going to be speaking in different capacities, whether as guests or keynote speakers or as moderators. And I just wanted to give an opportunity to discuss. I know you guys have seen a little bit behind the scenes in terms of what we're planning, what you are most excited about in terms of the conference, which topics, which speakers, which networking components are you most excited about? And I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of share that with the audience. So again, let's just start with Dave and work our way back around.
Well, I mean, clearly, I think for me, the panel on development, new construction, and kind of where different, we've got a couple of builders, some are single family, some are multifamily. I'm kind of curious to hear where they hear that market going. Man, there's so many good panels on our agenda right now. It's hard to pick some, but one of the things that I'll say is that I think the education is going to be great. I think the networking is going to be even better, right? And the way we're trying to structure the conference is where we've got very specific time and space where people can network. Unlike a typical FIBI meeting, this isn't a $20, $25 entrance fee. It's a little more expensive. It's a 2-day conference. I think we're going to draw a bit more of a more people that are doing more deals on a regular basis and maybe less people that are just getting started, which is going to, I think, provide this networking environment where people can exchange a lot of resources, and not only about what they're doing currently, but maybe something they just heard in one of the panels or one of the keynotes or one of the fireside chats. So I'm looking forward to kind of rubbing elbows with our community and hearing and seeing, hopefully, people putting deals and opportunities together.
Agreed. It's going to be awesome. And that panel in particular is going to be great. I know that there's a couple of speakers that are already confirmed that are going to knock it out of the park. So I don't want to ruin any surprises, but don't forget to check out the intelligentinvestors2018.com website to see as that gets updated. All right, Matt, what about you? What are you most excited for about the conference?
I'm really looking forward to, for my own self-interest, learning from the different people on the panels about some of the different topics that relate to my business and how it can help me, like from the fixing and flipping aspect to the multifamily. I know both of those are really good topics, and raising private capital, all those, the main components that go into an active real estate investor are going to all be discussed by a lot of the professionals that I know do a lot of activity. And so I'm just looking forward to that 1 or 2 tidbits of information that's going to really move my business forward or make me another 30 to 100 grand a year just for, making a modification or being aware of what's happening in the market as well and seeing what they're seeing, because that really helps you, get away from those challenges with regard to, problems in the market and things that are unknown that you don't see coming. So those are really what I'm looking forward to, is those topics, and it'll all help me with my business. So that's what I want.
Sure. It's worth your time,
right,
significantly by just attending that stuff and learning from other people, because if you just take one cake away, it makes a huge difference.
Exactly.
All right, Jeremy, what about you?
Yeah, so similar to Matt, I'm most interested certainly in the topics that kind of where I'm focused on as an investor. So one is, which I think is going to be great, and I know a couple people on the panel, and they're really, really smart in the space, is the cannabis panel, where I've actually both invested on the real estate side, but I also have a couple of startup investments on the business side, and really curious to get their take on that, because that is a very quickly evolving space. Another one would be just kind of outlook for 2019 for commercial real estate, which I think will be a really interesting insight to see where people, think some of the asset classes stand. And I'm also looking forward to Ryan Smith, who I've invested with, discussing kind of mobile home parks and self-storage and why they go well together. So those are two of my favorite asset classes, and I'm just curious to hear what he has to say. Ryan is a really, really good speaker, a very smart guy, so I'm really looking forward to hearing him as well. By the way, I just want to clarify one thing. I know David mentioned that this is more expensive than a normal FIBI meeting, and that's absolutely true. The reason why is because it's very expensive to put this on in Los Angeles, which is why there aren't that many of these types of conferences here in LA. And so our goal, like we always have as a goal with foreign investors, my investors, is to actually try to break even with the venue, cost of the venue. So if we sell out, we essentially break even, just to be clear for everyone who's listening to this. So we are not doing this for any profit motive. We're just trying to help investors unite together like we always do with foreign investors, my investors. I know Hunter, with his company that we're partnering with, is doing the exact same thing. And, I can tell you personally, my motivation with the conference is that just hopefully will help as many people as possible, whether it's from information gathering, learning from other investors, networking with other investors, learning from the speakers, whatever it is. And that's our main goal. And, if we can break even while doing so, that's great. We're hoping not to lose money between us, but if we can help other people, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, thanks again for sharing that, Jeremy. And I agree completely. There's so many great panelists, so many great speakers. There's several that I'm really looking forward to. I mean, anything regarding commercial real estate, it's in flux right now. It's an interesting time to be involved in the sector. A lot of people believe that a single family is not as inflated as commercial. So being careful with your commercial purchases is really critical. I know Michael Flight is a sponsor and also going to be a speaker, and he focuses on retail. He is still seeing a significant amount of investment opportunities in the retail sector because of the fact that pretty much everyone is scared of it right now. So it's always interesting to get perspectives like that. And that's the only way you can get those types of perspectives is in multi-guest situation where you can ask each person different things. And I also really like doing panels when it comes to things like legal and accounting, because you always hear this phrase where, you ask 10 attorneys 10 different things, you get 20 different answers. Well, that is important to get a range of the perspectives that is out there. So if we have something about tax efficient real estate investing, which I know is an important panel that we're going to have, we have 3 different panelists to discuss different strategies for doing that. And they may not agree with each other, but you can get a range of what's out there and apply it to your situation. But most of all, what I'm most excited about is really delivering a minimum of a 10x return on everyone's investment. And I'm really confident that we're going to do that. If you're an active real estate investor and you're currently pursuing deals on a regular basis, I am confident that you will get a 10x return, because any key takeaway, whether it be something as small as due diligence and being able to pinpoint which deals are good, to anything as massive as identifying red flags, those things can make you thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And most importantly, can help you avoid losing that money. So I'm very excited about it. I'm really happy that we're going to be able to put this on, and I'm really confident we're going to be able to achieve that goal. So before we jump off, guys, I know we need to run because our time is limited here. Just real quick, if you could just let the listeners know a little bit more about how they can get in touch with you or learn more about your firm. And again, I'll just start with you, Dave.
Yeah, I'd say you can go to corealestate.com to find out more about our business. Or, I'd say go to Intelligent Investors 2018 to learn more about the conference. And there's information there about our businesses as well.
Awesome. All right. Let's hear it, Matt.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you guys how to get in touch with me. I'm going to be on the panels at the conference, and and I'm going to be doing, I think, one on out-of-state investing, and I'll be a moderator on another one. So I'll give you guys some amazing value there. And if you don't want to get in touch with me, show up to the conference and we'll talk.
Perfectly withholding the information. Jeremy, what about you?
So people are welcome to email me directly, jroll, JROLL, at Roll Investments, ROLL Investments with an S.com. So jroll@rollinvestments.com. I am always happy to network with anybody surrounding passive cash flow opportunities, whether it's people who have opportunities that are looking for investors, whether it's other investors who are investing, they're just looking to network with other investors, or whether new people just trying to learn about the space. I'm happy to have calls to help people. So really happy to discuss, passive investing with anybody.
All right, guys, and all that information will be in the show notes page. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time, and have a great day.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
All right, listeners, thanks for checking out the episode. As always, the contact information for our guest will be available in the show notes page, which is hosted on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Stitcher. Don't forget, if you want access to some of the free goodies that I'm talking about at the beginning of these episodes, like free ebooks, weekly investor emails, and articles about some of the most important investment-related topics, make sure that you have created an account with CFC, because this stuff is automatically available. You can do this by going to cashflowconnections.com and signing up as an accredited investor. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at hunterthompson@cashflowconnections.com. Thanks again.